Welcome back to the Prisca Theologian YouTube channel. My name is Kamasi Rahim, and today we will be speaking about political authority as well as the state of nature. Briefly, I would like to welcome and say thank you to the subscribers that we have gained in the past week since we've started. We have gained 10 subscribers, over 3,000 views, and multiple comments already across multiple shorts. I'm proud because, of course, one likes to know that they make sense, that they are touching someone with what they're saying, that they're not just rambling to themselves. I have no problem rambling to myself. However, I could do that without posting it on the internet. And, the purpose for doing this is to speak with people, to exchange information. In the comments section, someone actually already has mentioned that they woke up from a dream about 6 times in one night recently. And that was very interesting and cool. It couldn't have been shared with me if I didn't post on YouTube about states of consciousness and metaphysics and epistemology in that way. So I certainly am very excited to speak with more people, to hear more about what you have discovered about this place. That's what we're doing here, all of us at the end of the day, sharing what we have discovered about this place so that we can try and make it easier to discover more things moving forward for the next generations. Political authority is where politics is conceived of as the practice of organizing and regulating human affairs through a state and legal system. This is in contrast to the state of nature. A lot of philosophers have endeavored to define their own state of nature. Each one from the respective philosopher is driven by qualia, and in such a way that there is no generalization that we all can just go by in that way, in any scientific way. It is just simply each one has their own understanding of what that means. And so what I have done, or what I have realized, is in comparison, or rather contrast, to Thomas Hobbes specifically. According to Thomas Hobbes, the state of nature is a world without political authority, where it would be a war of all against all, and it is described as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. According to Hobbes, humanity would descend into its own chaos and madness. So then, a political authority would be that which could bring order from chaos. Is there a person or some kind of personage that may have already done this? The divine. The divine amongst the waters of the chaos. The divine brought forth order from chaos. This is why all of the hermetic, occult, esoteric societies and the like, they all revere order from chaos. This is in line with the resurrection mysteries. That which efficiently brings order from the chaos is the divine. And so this is where such practices or beliefs as divine kingship originate. The ancient cultures' wisdom on the understanding that we are all the same, that all is the divine, along with the aforementioned divine kingship concept, are what gave forth the grounds of political authority as we have it today. It evolved from who could to who should. The placing of any authority and power was, especially post-Enlightenment, predicated on the understanding that all are the divine, is the divine, and should experience an at least commonly unobstructed and even encouraged life between each other. That is to say that of everything that happens, natural disasters, just life happenings, there is not a reason for us to be in each other's way. And so a political authority should help alleviate any reason that we could have to behave in such a way, to see each other in such a way. As I'm about to get into deeply, this is not the case. It apparently is so that our political authorities are intentionally increasing the divide, creating divides. Thomas Hobbes lived from 1588 to 1679. As of April 28th, 2024, this is when I wrote this, I can honestly say that I disagree with the fallacious notion that political authority factually equates to whatever life one may consider to be the opposite of solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. And this is a shared experience of the world today for the vast majority of people under political authority. These political authorities themselves have committed and admitted to secret and open campaigns in which they themselves use their citizens as a means to an end, killed for self-interest other politicians as well as citizens, used coercive measures to manipulate autonomous human beings into doing what they wanted them to do, such as in the case of the Central Park Five. They were wrongfully imprisoned after being interrogated without their parents even being present. A series of illegal actions led to these boys into men losing so much of their lives as far as being free to not be in jail, especially when you don't deserve it. These political authorities have stated retaliation against those they were to protect if they did not cooperate with commanded solitude and a series of injections. These political authorities have also committed acts of terrorism on their own lands, such as the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombings of 1921 and the Philadelphia bombing of 1985. Both of these were on Afro homes. These political authorities have also committed acts of biological terrorism on their own subjects. For further understanding on that, today, look into MKUltra. I'm certain I will be doing a video that has to do with that at some point. I'm just not sure when. To put several significant buttons on the previous list, we have the Crusades, the alleged burning of the books at the Library of Alexandria. I say alleged because I personally don't have the answer on that. So I won't say it for sure happened or did not. I've heard a couple of things. I've seen and read a couple of things. We will find out, maybe together. The witch trials, slavery, and the Bible explicitly promotes being a good slave as well as describes how to be a fair master. Arguments philosophically have been made for that, in that this is what humanity was doing. We were enslaving each other. And so God provided some regulations to those who would do it regardless of his will against such actions. I'm summarizing a couple of the arguments for you right now. I'm not necessarily going into them. So it is not that I've stated a stance on these things. I've just given you a couple of the arguments. So the final buttons would be Jim Crow, Nazi Germany, and the current tensions regarding a potential Third World War. With all of these events, past and current, in mind, the idea that political authority is what humanity has been looking for to bring order from chaos it's not supported. It's not a cogent inference to make. As of the past few decades, the Freedom of Information Act search has opened an avenue for knowledge on these very subjects as far as it could, because bear in mind, it's still from them. So people can educate themselves on these matters instead of blindly trusting political authorities. However, the long history of man betraying man, whether on the personal or world stage, seems to have yet to teach man that man is the problem and the solution regarding his own suffering or thriving. It is in the quality of his experience related to the instance. In a world where man is honest, a political authority would be headed by honest people. But really, humanity would not then need a political authority. Today, 300 years beyond Hobbes's final days, there are people living a life that they could, if not when describing their whole life, at some point or in some space of it, consider solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and many who were said to have their lives cut short or taken too soon before their time. This is all happening under the leadership of contemporary political authority, and society is being gaslit by hypocritical contractarians. Within the ranks of these political authorities, there is an observed culture of betrayal, subterfuge, deceit, and coercion. We see this from the government with Donald Trump and Joseph Biden, and we see this in the music and entertainment industry with Diddy, with Weinstein, all of these people who are somehow linked and somehow at odds when it's really convenient. We can also see this historically, such as with Julius Caesar, his own best friend, et tu, Brute, and you, Brutus. His best friend, as well as his colleagues, stabbed him to death. And this is political authority. These are the political authorities. And according to Thomas Hobbes, we are better under them than without them. As I just briefly touched on, from 2016 onward, the position of President of the United States has been under scrutiny due to the actions of those acting as the executive chief of the country, and even those who were just vying for the spot. We have Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Why do I keep forgetting his name? I don't have a oh lefties, oh righties, like beef. It's not me. I'm a humanist. What do we have to do to figure this out? I'm not concerned about these directions and hating people because of them. Because there are people on both sides who are awful. There are people on both sides who are great. And period. Whether or not what has been said about the aforementioned public figures is true, the very idea that the system is at all dishonest qualifies as a failure to maintain the moral integrity of the political authority. How can a group of immoral people morally hold accountable naturally immoral masses of people with the intention of making society comfortable for all? Now, that is not to say that humanity could not learn from such a force, an adversary. The power is where one places their responsibility. If we keep placing our power everywhere else than within, and properly rooted within, knowing where we come from, knowing what it is that we are, then we will always be under someone else who is just another human. And it would really even be one thing if it was seriously some supremely moral being, someone that we could look up to. It's very different. We can feel that there's hypocrisy happening, and that is the issue. You can feel it. You know that these people leading the country are not more moral than you. They are probably so much worse than the majority of people on the internet. But we are allowing them to lead us because we don't want to take responsibility. And so we don't deserve that power back if we're not going to take the responsibility. It is as much a danger to fall into a kind of political authoritarian fundamentalism as it is to fall into a dogmatic religious fundamentalism. While it is not inherently true that without some political authority we would be obviously better off, the nature of man is twofold. It is this nature that has further driven man into its own suffering, but also that nature which can then deliver man from it. To ignore the selfless side of that nature in the pursuit of the formation of some commonly shared code of conduct or set of morals, whether explicit or implicit, is ignorant and dishonest to the integrity of the human being. It is also fallacious as well as propagandistic of any person to use the aforementioned incomplete framing of humanity to pathologically seduce support out of people for some personal gain, especially when presenting a front that their decisions are for the common good. This sole magnification of humanity's negative qualities can frame a false dichotomy in the minds of initially implicit subjects who may not wish to be considered subjects at all, when political authority and chaos are not even a pair of polarities. They are not antithetical, let alone the only options humanity has. I even find many of my peers quick to say sincerely illogical things such as humanity is a mistake. Regarding their disdain for existence, it's full of contradictions because it is only by existing that they can do this. This kind of thinking propagates the problem and does not present any solution. It is, to me, the true and only reason why humanity is stuck until it becomes wise enough to take responsibility at the individual, personal level. Hobbes once said, "Hereby it is manifest that during the time men live without a common power to keep them all in awe, they are in that condition which is called war. And such a war is of every man against every man." Apparently, he considered this common power to be in some form of man-made social or political authority. As previously stated, I must and do disagree. Natural law, in its most pure and natural form, is the common power. All are equal before nature and under God. It is through the observation of nature that we can observe both directions of God's will, natural law. We observe very distinctly that love, care, patience, and other similarly subjectively positive attributes give rise to forces and forms in the tangible. They create. These powers allow us to build homes, build families, build skills, create art, etc. We also observe with great and often more immediate certainty that disinterest, malice, laziness, hate, and other similarly subjectively negative attributes give rise to forces that destroy forms in the tangible. These powers allow us to destroy homes, destroy families, forget skills, and never have the courage to try, to live. So, beside the epistemological point that it is not an objective fact that this state of nature, as Hobbes has described it, is what would be the case without a political authority, it is also simply incomplete when considering nature in its totality and its integrity. Yes, the human being as well, but nature. All of this comes from nature, some natural process. Whether or not we create AI, we manufactured that. At the end of it all things are still of the divine and should be treated as such. So where things come from does not matter. And that's my point in everything that I say ever. Where stuff comes from really doesn't matter. Are we good people or not? But so nature in its integrity we see is a balance of order and chaos. It's a balance of order and chaos. Just as we may well encounter stealing and killing in nature or society, we encounter the balancing acts of loving self-sacrifice and healing. So I must respectfully disagree with the idea that human nature always leads to the more selfish choice being made by an individual. This would be to intimate that human nature is inherently and majorly selfish with favor toward the individual. This is not apparently what we observe when someone gives a homeless man their hot plate of food unprovoked by the homeless person. They didn't ask, they didn't have a mug out or anything, they may even have been asleep. And that person who had the food initially hadn't eaten, and they had had a long day of work. This is a specific scenario because I've done this, so I know people do this. Another supporting example would be when we see a stranger crying alone and we ask them what's wrong or offer them a well wish as we pass if we can't stay to talk. This is also something that I have done. I know people do this. These are actions that have nothing inherently to do with the guidance or influence of a political authority. And while it could still be argued that had they not done the actions, it may be selfish, they wouldn't have been doing harm to anyone by not doing the actions. So in that space, there's fairness and neutrality. They could do either thing. They could harm someone, they could help someone. They chose to help someone. That is what is important to remember when people would come around to make us believe that we don't care about each other. We do. Everyone wants to be treated well, and we know what that means. So as I said, it then comes down to the quality of one's personal experience as derived from their intention. Intention and result pairs may vary, and that is where the difference between the idea of offense and the idea of harm comes in. Briefly, an offense is something a little more accidental. It's, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just doing this thing and there was some collateral damage. That's an offense. Harm is like libel, is gossip, it's insulting someone, it's defamation, there is an intention behind this damage. And that is why these things are certainly illegal. Whereas things that you can be offended by, that's more in the sphere of political correctness. And now the sphere of political correctness has moved into a space of legality of its own with cancel culture and whatever the banning situation is with these bots on Instagram and YouTube. In conversations where I'm talking about this stuff, simply, I've had my comments deleted before they were even really posted, and you never got to see them. The number never went up saying that there was a new comment. It was gone. And then I'm getting a notification about how my account might get banned and stuff. And so, and that's not this account. This is just my time on the internet over this past year. I wonder if you've experienced the same. Natural law. This is how we govern ourselves as individuals, and this bleeds into societies. However, also, if the society has the mind in total to work on this, it will bleed into individuals because it will be the environment. And so there will be refining that happens. It is never for us to decide, though, because natural law, it can decide it, it does decide it, it does it logically well enough that we are here to talk about it today. It is true that with great power comes great responsibility. It is not a matter of time, though, because the responsibility and the power are in the same package. So they get slapped on you. Each level gets slapped on you together. Maybe you experience them in a little bit of a lag because of the linear nature of how we experience time at this juncture. Be sure, the reason that we get into so much trouble as we get older is because we have greater capacity for power. And so we have more responsibility. We are no longer under our parents. We can do whatever we want. But so now we have greater responsibilities as well, as far as what we must contribute, as far as what we also could get held responsible for. And this is the same throughout the universe. The Spider-Man in the multiverse, with great power comes great responsibility. The more responsibility that you take over all of this, the greater your power. It is not, you do not claim this. You do not try to measure it and claim it, because that is to go at something built with heart and mind, with the mind alone. That's incorrect. You cannot just feel it, because that would just be with the heart alone. That is not correct, because feelings in their different manifestations are subject to different phenomena which can induce a transition in them from one feeling to another. And so the core of it is that balance of mind and heart, because these are the things that drive the human. These are the things that drive everything, the mind and the heart. I appreciate this opportunity to exchange information with you. Be well.